Good afternoon. We're going to go ahead and call the Public Safety Committee meeting to order for October 18. I want to take an opportunity to invite my two colleagues up. If you could want to come on up front to
And the mayor.
the chairs here as well as the mayor. Greatly appreciate your presence closer. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I'll do this way. Oh, you want? Don't do that. Oh, sorry.
Watch your
Grab those two chairs.
Oh, up there? Commissioner, did you mean up here? At this table?
Closer.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you. What the hell?
Sorry.
We moved from the balcony to mezzanine, okay.
Being told to sit at the table.
No.
Sorry. I was just so excited to sit by Willie.
Mr. Chair, if I could. Yeah, I think it's important all the city commissioners are here today to hear the update that I had staff presented, so I appreciate those who are not on the committee for being here, and so thank you for being here. Mr. Kane will get a portable mic.
We're going to begin. First item on the agenda is an update from the Grand Rapids Fire Department.
I don't have a mouse. Give me 1 second.
Good afternoon, Ms. Ferroli. How are you?
Good afternoon,
Good.
Commissioner and Public Safety Committee. I'm going to allow this to jump open. Nope. Oh, there we go. All right, so I'm here to provide an informative update to you all in regards to the City of Grand Rapids being awarded the fiscal year 22 FEMA Regional Catastrophic Preparedness Grant. And this grant is going to be coming to the city to support the Office of Emergency Management for a 3-year time frame. Go to the next slide. Oh, I have it? Oh, sorry. Thank you. So I want to give a little background on what the Regional Catastrophic Preparedness Grant program is. So the big piece of this is it is a preparedness grant. This is not a grant that's usually tied to disasters, similar to like a hazard mitigation grant or a flood mitigation grant. It is non-disaster related. And also in the state of Michigan, only 2 cities are eligible to apply. That's the city of Detroit and the city of Grand Rapids, and that's due to population based. So from my understanding, this is the first time the city has actually gone through with this application and applied for some funding to help with our preparedness capabilities here in the city. This grant supports the building of core capabilities essential to achieving a secure and resilient community and being able to close known capability grants. So for fiscal year 22, FEMA wanted to make sure that projects applied through this grant program really focus on the needs of socially vulnerable populations, in addition to having some strategic priorities focused around equity, climate resilience, and readiness. So with that, we are fortunate to be awarded this grant this year. We were awarded $603,044. It is a 3-year grant period that will go till September of 2025. So what the Office of Emergency Management will be looking to do with this grant is to hire a consultant to come in and to perform what's known as a threat and hazard identification risk assessment, or otherwise known in the world of emergency management as a THIRA. What a THIRA is, it is a baseline, it's a standard assessment that all jurisdictions should do to get a full understanding of natural, human-made, and technological threats and hazards that we have in our community. So looking at our history, looking at what's currently happening, and then projecting at our future to get a full, holistic understanding of all of those threats and hazards. Once that has been performed, the consultant will then take that assessment and work to hold community engagement sessions, stakeholder engagement sessions, to understand really what does our preparedness and readiness look like from a stakeholder and a community level. And what that does is identifies gaps through equipment we have, the training we've offered before, exercising that we've done, how things are organized in the jurisdiction, and then also how are we planning? What plans do we have in place? What plans do we not have in place? So these are two big pieces of really having a baseline of emergency management program, and with us getting an emergency operations plan, a hazard mitigation plan, and a continuity of operations plan pretty much done, this is the next step of really those building blocks. In addition to that, this grant will also allow the Office of Emergency Management to hire an emergency management specialist. So being able to not be only a one-person shop anymore, to add somebody to help focus on community outreach and education. So really taking these findings from what the consultant is going to look for in the assessment and the reports, but also to then be able to work with our community to build a program for community outreach and education to help close those gaps and to, again, work with our community members to become more resilient. I don't necessarily have a full detailed timeline of what everything is going to look like over the 3 years, because a lot of this will come when we are able to hire a consultant that really dives into what the full process looks like. But this is just a proposed timeline of kind of what we should anticipate and expect. So right now I'm currently finalizing the budget details with FEMA and just kind of making sure we're all level set on those, so that we can then move forward with submitting an RFP to find a consultant, looking to get this done by the end of January. Same time frame as posting the job position for the emergency management specialist. And then the first step would be performing a THIRA, should be about a year process. And then the year after that, focusing on the stakeholder preparedness and community preparedness report developments. And then while all those things are going on, once we've hired an emergency management specialist, to then be able to really kick off our public outreach and education opportunities around emergency management needs. And then everything will be wrapped up and really finding out to identify those gaps through training and exercising equipment, et cetera, and prioritize where we're going to then take all that and really prioritize our investments moving forward after 2025. So with that, that's what I have on this exciting grant that we have been awarded for the city, and I am interested in some questions if you have those.
Sure.
Colleagues, please.
Thank you, Mrs. Foley, for this report. Hypothetically, if there is a catastrophe tomorrow, what is the first process to take place?
For a response to a disaster or catastrophe?
Yes.
With that, we're really assessing what is happening, doing situational assessment and activating our emergency operations center and getting the stakeholders to the table, do what we can to do initial response.
Is there a not a report, but is there some kind of list of who are engaged in the operation for the catastrophe?
Yes, so in our emergency operations plan, that really outlines the different stakeholders and agencies that we would come to the table for a variety of functions. And so that talks about who we would have come to the table for transportation functions, mass care, if there is external affairs like public information, things like that. So that's all outlined at a strategic level in the emergency operations plan.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Colleagues, any other questions? No? Okay, very good. Thank you, Ms. Rowley.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Our next item is an update from the Grand Rapids Police Department. Sorry about that.
Thank you, members of the committee. Today, I'm going to go through update of the slides and the metrics that you guys have asked for on a monthly basis, and then our co-response team is here with their first report out to this body on the work that they've been doing, which has been very exciting for all of us, the community and the police department. So the updated numbers on the graphs you're going to see are tabulated until the end of September. So through September of this year, we've had 19 homicides, 12 of which involved firearms. The national average for law enforcement agencies to close homicide cases is 55%. In 2021, GRPD's clearance rate was 78.9%. In 2022, we have had 20 homicides. Unfortunately, we had an additional homicide in the month of October. That's why that number is different. 9 of these have been closed by arrest or prosecution. 2 have been closed exceptional, were self-defense related, and the majority of the other cases are currently in prosecutorial review. The police department has recovered 404 firearms as of September 30th of this year. This includes illegally possessed firearms as well as firearms used in crimes. This number does not include the recent gun buyback, in which there were an additional 286 firearms turned into the police department. 86 of those were pistols, 69 were revolvers, 81 shotguns, 44 rifles, 7 semi-auto rifles, and 3 black powder rifles. Auto theft continues to rise and currently sits at 1,070. A large reason for this issue is with the Kia and Hyundai vehicles we have previously discussed here at Public Safety. Aggravated assaults are trending slightly lower than 2021 with a reported 967. Burglary, breaking and entering, total incidents are 386, non-residents 146, and residential 202. I want to give you an update on the data-informed community engagement. We've talked about this a little bit, but just to remind you that we analyze the data from the crime numbers and the law enforcement. Then we set up a service referral tracking number so we can track the activity of our officers. We then go out into the neighborhoods, and the neighborhood organizations have been a humongous partner in these engagement events to bring people to the table. These have been some of the largest neighborhood meetings that we've had. And these really are us presenting the data that we have, but then we kind of shut up and just listen at that point on what people are really experiencing in the neighborhoods. Then we deploy resources, but it's not just our resources. As we've been going through this, we've had discussion with the executive office and brought in James Hurt's staff and Ms. Bohatch's staff, and they've really helped us out because safety is not just a law enforcement function, and it's a citywide initiative that we've been doing. And some of the things that have come out of these areas have been lighting concerns, but the lights are working, but the trees have also been growing. And so there are those areas that we've been able to identify, or forestry's been able to identify that are a problem, and then these issues are being cleaned up and taken care of right away. One example of the community taking some initiative and taking some ownership is down at Franklin and Eastern. We've got the car wash down there that's been vacant for a while. In that neighborhood, they said, hey, this is a problem. We have a lot of criminal activity that occurs here. What can we do with this vacant property? And until it gets used in a purpose use, they decided to board it up. And so that was a community initiative, and they did that. They boarded it up, and then they realized it didn't look so good, so then they painted those boards. And if you go by there, they're regular OSB, but they painted them black, and it looks very nice compared to what it used to be. We're able to, the first initiative that we did was really not centered around the whole DICE program, but it was something that the Hartside neighbors came and talked to us about, and it was about the drug dealing that was occurring in the Hartside area. So we were responsive to that and ran a delayed case in that area where 14 arrests were made, 2 firearms were recovered, and over 124 grams of cocaine in that operation. Currently in the South Service area, we've staff time, we've had 145 hours, 31 minutes, and 48 seconds down there, conducted 54 traffic stops, 10 felony arrests, 16 misdemeanor arrests in that area, and 4 weapons have been recovered. In the East Service area, we spent 478 hours of staff time in that area, made 66 traffic stops, 46 felony arrests, 76 misdemeanors, and 7 weapons have been recovered in that area. So that's just what the police department's doing, but the community, again, continues to be engaged in these efforts as well as other city resources. Additional updates from the police department, the new camera trailers have been delivered and the training is complete. 3 new trailers were delivered. The first trailer has been deployed in the North Service area to assist with issues in some of the city parks. These cameras, the difference with these is we don't have to bring them back in, plug them in and charge them up. They're solar powered so they can stay out for extended periods of time. The special response team has been redeployed to assist with violent crime areas of the city and to assist with staffing shortfalls due to reduced personnel. They're now fall directly under my command, so I'm able to look at our staffing shortfalls for the day, and where we're having issues with violent crime, that's where the majority of them are deployed, or if we have additional needs in other areas of the city, such as the downtown district. We've also deployed 4 officers were moved from the afternoon shift, which is a 4 to 2 shift, to the day shift working 7 to 5. Certain days are used to fill the gaps, like I said, in patrol staffing. If there are not shortfalls, they're deployed to other areas of need, like the downtown district. Additional flexible deployment of sworn personnel at the direction of myself and the watch commanders each day. Those units include the HOT team, the Boys and Girls Club officers, the traffic unit, the co-response mental health, the officers assigned to clear, and the officers that work with code enforcement. Recruiting investments. Earlier today, we discussed Epic Recruiting with the Fiscal Committee. It's a digital marketing and recruiting platform, and it's partnership with Human Resources, the Police Department, and Epic Recruiting. They specialize in digital recruiting, which will build a candidate pool consistent with the department's new strategic plan, a more diverse pool in both the recruits and the certified candidates. Epic will produce the content, develop a web solution, and execute digital recruiting campaign. Key analytics will be monitored and analyzed as it pertains to the size and diversity of our academy and certified candidates. A digital push recruitment can be tailored to geographic areas or affinity groups based on critical features and parameters like population centers of diverse individuals, colleges and universities that attract a diverse population, lateral transfers of current officers from other agencies. Results can be measured with various online tools to track success and adapt to changing conditions. That's all I have for this until we go to the co-response mental health model. If you've got any questions. Yes, sir.
If we could pause, go ahead,
Yeah,
City Manager.
I just want to reemphasize some of the things, I think on this slide in particular, to confirm some of the operational strategy going forth. So the police department is authorized for staffing of roughly 305 officers, and if staffed to that level, have the ability to hire even beyond that for planned attrition, so up to 315 if need be. And right now, the staffing level is roughly
We're 22 short right now.
22 short. So what the chief has said, deputy chief has said, is the ability to have additional cameras that we're working on, even acquiring more, but also the redeployment of certain operations will allow some coverage, some more immediate response and coverage, but along with looking at everything that's not a policing matter. And you heard that with the DICE effort, and you'll hear more with the mental health co-response effort. But the reality is that until the staffing level, the hiring of officers can be more permanently sustained, we are going to be challenged with redeploying from one area to another area. And that's what's happening now. And so it is critical that the department, all the community, do what they can to help shore up the staffing levels in the department. So I appreciate the effort today of thinking creatively how we can begin to think about how to staff differently, because the staffing levels have basically been the same since 2020, roughly.
Yes.
Very good. Before I open it up for questions, I got one quick question for you, Deputy Chief. Can you give some historic context around shift times with the department? You mentioned in particular the two shifts of 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. and a 4 p.m. to 2 a.m. How long have those shift times been at play for the department?
Well, that is just with the special response team.
Okay.
And so that mirrors schedule closely associated with our narcotics division.
Okay.
But we're on 12-hour shifts. So our patrol officers work either 5:30 or 6:30 in the morning till 5:30 or 6:30 at night, and then it reverses for the night shift.
How long have we been operating with the two 12-hour shifts as a department?
At least the last 4 years.
Okay. Prior to that, would you recall what the?
We were on 10s
Okay.
before that. And actually, it's been longer than 4 years that we've been on 12s. It's a contractual issue.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay. Very good. Colleagues?
Yes.
Questions?
This morning in fiscal, we talked about the EPIC organization that you are partnering with. For this panel, could you give a brief discussion of what the digital recruitment is about?
Well, actually, I have Mr. Alex Johnson here from EPIC, and he can answer any questions that you guys might have, reference exactly what they do.
Please. Yep. Yep, please.
Alex?
Are you talking specifically to the audience that we're going to be doing the online advertising for? So what we do, and one of the first steps that we have 4 phases when we develop recruiting campaigns for police departments and agencies, law enforcement agencies. The first one we do is our research and strategy. In that research, we're identifying basically who is going to be successful in this department. Then we locate those possible areas of where we can recruit those individuals, whether it's a university, whether it's a military base, high school, in that strategy. And then there's also, geo-fencing, geo-targeting of individuals in certain areas, certain cities with certain demographics. All that is decided within the strategy phase of what we do. And then when we deploy the campaign, after all the content is built, the website is built, that budget that is allocated for that online advertising campaign, it pushes the traffic to the website, and that's when the application process starts. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but it's basically the strategy is developed in phase 1 and it's executed in phase 4 based on that information that we collect.
Yes, it does. I wanted you to give a brief description of what you do and how you're doing it, and you did that, so thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
Colleagues, any questions, please?
I just wonder what other police departments you have worked for.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do my best to give you a good representation. We started out mostly in northern Southern California, and this dates back 10, 12 years ago when the law enforcement staffing crisis that we see now throughout the country was heavily prevalent in that area. So we worked with agencies as large as City of San Francisco to as small as Calaveras County, where they only have 36 officers. San Francisco, if you're familiar with that area, they have over 1,000 in just like a 7 to 8 square mile radius. We work with agencies across the country: Texas, Iowa Department of Public Safety, Newark, Delaware, Hillsborough County in Florida. So each city is trying to tackle the same challenge. Where we step in is trying to make that unique to them. So when we tell your story, we want to include the city. We want to include the people in the city. We want to include the landscape, the environment, the people who make it up. It's not just about selling the profession. It's about selling the profession here in this community. So we really get into detail as to how we tell that story, and we work with everybody involved, local organizations. One of the pieces I'm really excited about in Newark for the Newark Police Department is we went out and interviewed the president of the NAACP, and he spoke on behalf of the department, talked about their partnership with them, which is really strong, and the relationship they have and the commitment to finding those individuals that are going to be successful in their community for their police department. So really having open conversations with members of the community is just as important as focusing on the specialties and opportunities that are involved in the profession.
Thank you.
Very good. Yep. Commissioner.
Yeah, I'd ask you a similar question to what I asked you this morning, just because I think it would be valuable for those in the audience now. Is strategies to how you approach recruiting for both non-traditional candidates and non-traditional pathways. And I thought that billboard example you gave this morning too was really interesting on how you're targeting not necessarily the low-hanging fruit, because those folks are already probably interested in the profession, but how you get to some places where you're getting access to folks who might not necessarily be traditionally recruited by law enforcement.
Yeah, and I actually thought about that question after the fact, and Lieutenant O'Brien and I were speaking about it, is non-traditional, meaning people that you wouldn't think have had a successful career in law enforcement. There's always going to be the stories of my grandfather was a police officer, my mother was a corrections officer. You're going to always have those stories. One of the things and really interesting things that we do in phase one in our strategy and discovery is interview those, what I call kind of the rock stars of the department, people that are maybe ex-athletes from backgrounds of technology. I've interviewed people who were kindergarten teachers, and they became police officers and very successful. Those are the type of people who understand kind of the compassionate side of police work. Those people who bring different stories to the table. One campaign that we did for Norfolk, Virginia, Norfolk PD, we were driving around getting to know the city, and in this direction, there was a military base. And in this direction was a historically black college, Norfolk State. And I said, no, so what are we doing for the military? And they said, oh, we're in the job fairs. We're meeting with them every week. I'm like, okay, great. What are we doing at Norfolk State? And they're like, nothing. I'm like, well, why not? And they're like, we've never tried. I was like, well, we're going to try. And so we created just almost like a sub-campaign of, a message. And what we did was we brought the stories of, women, African-American women, young African-American males who have had success within the department and achieved the highest, ranking. And we brought those stories to that college and said, you know what? Put yourself in their shoes. This could be you one day. They provide, they had great opportunities in life because of the career that was provided for them. And so we want to uncover every stone, turn over every stone and make sure that we're not missing those opportunities to make a connection within those individuals who might be successful with us. So non-traditional meaning people you wouldn't necessarily peg for that person's perfect for this job. I want people who are going to bring different perspectives.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Kettle?
In that line, I wonder if the first report we got was about the overall preparedness of our city for everything. And it seems to me that there's a whole lot of new disciplines that are going to be needed to provide cybersecurity and everything. I've had some conversations with people about this. Every layer of the city is public safety. And so when you say non-traditional, I'm thinking about or people who are in a different discipline.
Sure.
Might be accounting. They could be forensic person, that kind of a thing. Do you ever delve into those kind of things as well?
Yeah, because, what we want to identify is, okay, what's going to bring someone to this city and work for this police department, whether that's community outreach programs for people who just have a heart for humanity, whether it's technology, departments have drone programs. Those are individuals that are in engineering and robotics, high level math. Those individuals can find a successful career here. People who are involved in psychology can get involved in criminal investigation. So part of what we do in this campaign is we want to showcase all the opportunities that we have, because you never know when that's going to make a connection for somebody. I'll be like, I'm really good. If you can become a pilot, if you have an aerial program, those are the types of things we want to identify, showcase, and then connect the dots, right? Who is going to be interested in a program like that? So let's go to the engineering college and the job fair, hand out brochures, get them connected with the website, get them to scan the QR code. So you're exactly right. And our job is to make sure that we are highlighting those things that are going to attract those individuals that we want.
Manager?
Thank you again for being here this morning. And what I've heard, at least from some of the members of the SAFE Task Force that are here around this recruiting, I think the digital platform is essential, because recruiting is different than it was 10, 15 years ago, where it was just on-site visits. And so we have to have a real good digital presence. And I appreciate what you're saying about making sure that it's targeted to people who have not traditionally pursued law enforcement. What I was asked was, how do we take this national platform, this digital platform that you have, but also make sure that it's regionally contextual, and that we lie in between Chicago and Detroit, two predominantly populated cities of people of color, and have both the digital platform, but also have on-site teams that may have law enforcement, may have other staff, but other community members to reinforce what we're trying to solicit online. Have you worked in a community like that, where you've done the online, but you also help to coordinate community engaged recruiting efforts? You mentioned a little bit with NAACP, but practically launching them in other communities.
If I understand your question correctly, so what I see here is I heard this morning you were voted safest city in Michigan. People want to hear that, because when you get into policing, one, you want a community that is, especially nowadays, you want a community that's supportive of you. So we want to hear those stories. I mentioned, us going out and interviewing the local NAACP, but we've interviewed the mayor before. We've had the mayor speak on behalf of police departments. We've had, boys and girls clubs organizations speak on behalf, because they want to get to know more than just, I guess, the culture of the police department. Are they going to be able to send their kids to school here? Are they going to be able to raise a family here? Is their partner going to be able to find a job here? We want to answer all those questions. And so featuring the community, we spent 2 days of filming out in Aurora, Colorado of just mountain biking and hiking and, fishing and outdoors. People want to get to know your community. I always assume, regardless of where we're running the campaign, I don't want to assume that they're familiar with who we are. I want every question answered. So that has to come from people outside of the police department as well. And so people speaking on behalf of the police department is just as valuable, if not more, than hearing about those opportunities within the department. Does that kind of answer your question? And also, we do go outside of the market typically. Our Norfolk, Virginia campaign, we were actually running bus posters, subway posters in New York City. Because, for an individual who kind of likes that lifestyle within law enforcement, but doesn't necessarily want to live in that city anymore, we want to tell them that story that, hey, you're appreciated here, or you can feel safe here, and you can still do the job that you love. So those are kind of some of the stories that we like to tell.
Any other questions? I got one quick question for you. You're in your communication with community, or as you're communicating and asking questions and trying to get a sense of Grand Rapids, is that talk about some of the challenges that we are currently undertaking, whether it be the death of Patrick Luoya, police reform, things of that nature, in your communication with folks outside of the department?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a great question. We just launched a campaign for Aurora Police Department, and it took us 1.5 years to develop that campaign because they had a very sensitive incident happen in their community. There were a lot of people who wanted to be involved, because they knew the need, they knew the challenges, and so we were able to develop a really unique campaign. And it's the first time. Usually, I like to do kind of like non-scripted, more organic. But every word was looked at. Every visual was, really discussed about how we were going to represent the police department. That's not to say that the community wasn't supportive of them getting more officers. They just wanted to do it the right way. And so it's kind of nice having that approach, because if you understand the challenges, and you can definitely get on the same page as far as what the direction is, and then involving all those voices and including everybody in on that process, it really creates a very successful campaign. So we're really proud of that piece, because it was the most challenging just based on what they were facing. I mean, for 2 years, I think they had like a hiring freeze, and it was based on their kind of fear to be promoting this opportunity for a career. And once we got over that hump, the more conversations that we had, morale was really low. So that was another challenge. People were just leaving for whatever reason. Those kind of challenges, as long as we get them on the table and we're willing to discuss them, I think is the best formula for success. So I would never shy away from telling that story.
Thank you, sir.
Quick question.
Yes.
Therefore, what is the campaign timeline in this capacity? Because we want new officers.
Sure.
We're hoping to get the best of the best.
Yeah.
So what is the strategy that's used in that capacity?
Well, usually once we get the green light, it's usually about a 3-month process from when we initiate that first phase of getting to know who you guys are and how we're going to represent you, to actually launching the campaign. There's certain variables involved in that, like weather. Like if you want to, showcase your community when it's, the leaves are falling, or, people can be out on the lake or river fishing. Definitely you want to put your best foot forward. So there are variables involved with that. But from start to finish, it usually takes about 3 months. And then once the online campaign is executed, that's an ongoing thing for about 12 months.
Thank you. Please.
This is more a comment than a question, Joe, but I had recently an opportunity to observe the homeless outreach team in action, and that was followed up a week or two later, and I live downtown in Plaza Towers, and we had a meeting of interested and concerned citizens about the homeless situation. And Captain Mike Waldron from the fire department came out, and we had a very informative and enlightening recitation of the experiences of the last several years of a combination of the police, fire, and social services working together on situations. And I just want to commend the collaboration and cooperation that took place between departments. As I understand it, some of these people are volunteers, but I think a very effective approach as I watched someone being exited from kind of a squatting situation on Fulton Street. So really appreciate just adding to the variety of things that I think are coming, when we work together in various levels of expertise.
Thank you.
And I think to your point, once we get this campaign off the ground and we get a lot of candidates coming in to take those testing dates, and we have open houses at the police department, it's going to be important if we're showcasing the city that we get other city services involved to showcase other areas of the city, and not just city services, but also other opportunities people would have in the city, and maybe partner with other places that are offering jobs for spouses and things of that nature. So this isn't, hey, we're going to hand it all over to Epic. We've got a ton of things that we've been doing in the past, but those efforts can only reach so much, and we really think this is going to help jumpstart us, but we're not going to sit back and let them do all the work. So we're excited about this partnership.
Very good. Thank you, sir. I think we'll hear about the mobile crisis response history.
So yeah, I'm going to turn it over to Officer Paul Smith and Chrissy Lung from Network 180 and Sergeant John Witkowski.
Thank you, sir. I just want to say that I came from the accounting and finance field, so anybody can become a cop. So, Sergeant John Witkowski, I'm one of the supervisors of our special operations team. I oversee, along with Captain Mike Waldron, the homeless outreach team. I'm the supervisor of our co-response team and our code compliance team. Mobile Crisis was launched in July of this year, so we've been going for about 3.5 months. I'm going to introduce Officer Paul Smith and Chrissy Lung, our licensed mental health social worker. They will explain in detail what this team is about and what they do. They've been doing fantastic work in the community. This is just another opportunity for the Grand Rapids Police Department to grow in other arenas. And I encourage certainly questions and to think broadly as we move forward to grow this police department in initiatives similar to this. I think this is really where we are going, where we should go as a police department. As it is mentioned many times, and certainly by the chief, we cannot arrest our way out of the problems of our community. And this is just one other initiative that certainly supports that. I would be remiss if I didn't thank other people that helped put this team together. Our 2 elected senators, Stabenow and Senator Peters, certainly members of city staff, specifically Connie Bohach and Johanna Schultz, and members of the Grand Rapids Police Department, specifically Renee Rogers and other members of our payroll department that help manage this entire grant. So, Officer Paul Smith and Chrissy Lung.
Hello, everybody. How are you? I'm Paul Smith. I've been an officer for GR for 25 years now. I've been doing the co-response since July of this year with my partner, Chrissy Long. Before that, I used to run the CLEAR program for the City of Grand Rapids, and I'm also halfway to 3/4 through a LMSW social work degree, so it's kind of all really melds in with what I want to do when I retire. And I'll let you introduce Chrissy here.
Okay. I'm Chrissy Long. I am a licensed master social worker, and I'm also, prior to doing this, was a clinician at Network 180 for 18 years, so I'm pretty familiar with a lot of the individuals that we serve in the community. So.
We're really excited and happy to be here and kind of explain to you what we're doing. I think at the end of the day, we all want what's best for people in our community who are experiencing a mental health crisis. And I think that this team and what we do just gives GRP another tool to kind of help people in that crisis. It's kind of all started back in 2020 with a strategic plan. They wanted to develop and pilot a mental health response team that can correspond to calls for service for mental health, substance use disorder, and other calls for service. We got a discretionary grant in the ARPA funding, which is kind of paying for her spot and my spot. I think behavioral health calls, statistically across the nation, are about 10% of all calls for service. Anecdotally, I would argue as a cop working more than a couple years, that it's 30 to 40%, if not higher, that individuals who call us are in either a mental health or a substance use crisis. Calls are often time consuming. They take up a lot of time. There's a lot of complex different variables that are going on, and law enforcement, we don't always have the expertise or resources available to handle these calls. But by and large, people who in a crisis do call 911. So we're trying to figure out the best way to meld both those together. So we've been collaborating with mental health providers for increased residents to access behavioral health services, long-term interventions and treatment, and fewer uses of force, arrests, and hospitalizations. Our team went live on July 5th, 2022, and myself and clinician Long are in a unmarked vehicle. If you can tell, I wear a much more comfortable, we got softer uniform, so that when we go to these calls, we have myself and her, and usually another officer, try and take a little bit different approach on how to solve these problems. We primarily respond to mental health call for service, welfare check, suicidal individuals. We also respond to officer requests, which I think is very important, that officers on the field know we're working and they can call us and say, hey, you know what, you've got Chrissy, you've got yourself, and we just want to help people in our community, and I think that they might be better at trying to problem solve that. We work with the homeless outreach team, code enforcement, any other agencies who request this, and we also do a lot of collaboration with Network 180, Pine Rest, Hope Network, and pretty much all the mental health agencies that we have. You can see by the stats up there, welfare checks are generally our most prevalent call for service. Most of our responses are in person, and then a lot of the referrals are just either from calls for service, 911 calls, or follow-ups or emails from other officers. We do quite a bit of mental health pickup orders through Network 180 as well.
All right, I get to talk about our fun results. Since July 5th, on day one, we started hitting the streets, taking calls day one. So far, we've had over 325 calls for service, which is a lot. Those include 911 calls, officer calls if they're calling and they need assistance or backup, other clinician requests from other agencies, like other case management agencies, mental health pickup orders, if there's any complex mental health pickup orders, emails, phone follow-ups. And out of those 325 calls, we have had 87 emergency department diversions. So historically, when an officer arrived on the scene and there was a mental health concern, the first thing to do was get an ambulance, take them to the emergency department. It's not always the need for that. So we have been able to come in and divert some of these. A lot of people in a mental health crisis, the last thing you want is an ambulance showing up at your house, a fire truck, and 2 cop cars. So we are able to kind of come in, Officer Smith can kind of clear the scene, make sure it's safe, and then we can determine if we need to divert, as long as there hasn't been any sort of attempt or no medical concerns, then we can get rid of an ambulance. We've had 126 ambulance diversions, which has been awesome. We can transport in his unmarked cruiser, which a lot of people do prefer. It's not as traumatic to be transported in an ambulance, and we can take him in the cruiser and we can chat with them. And So a lot of times we're able to kind of continue de-escalating and getting a little bit more information when we're in the car with them. A lot of the officers, which has been amazing, a lot of the officers are reaching out to us for follow-up. Ultimately, they want what's best for the individual. All officers have been very receptive of us, and they are increasingly calling us, which has been awesome. Again, have had 23 jail diversions where we have been able to determine this person really has some mental health concerns or substance abuse concerns, so let's get them treatment as opposed to getting them to jail. So we've done that. We do a lot of routine follow-ups with people who might otherwise utilize 911. There are a lot of individuals who call 911, not because they're in a medical emergency, just because they might want someone to talk to. And we do work directly with dispatch to go talk to those individuals to see if we can decrease the usage of 911 and come up with alternative plans. We also do some stuff over the phone. Some people might not be very receptive to us coming to the home, and so we can do some things over the phone, talking to them, we text, just however we can engage with them, we will try it. So, and then obviously moving forward, we envision increased collaboration between police and mental health providers. Everybody in the community that we have come into contact with has been very receptive of what we're doing and very happy that Grand Rapids is taking this initiative to do this. So yeah, those are our statistics. So.
Very good. Thanks so much. Before I open up questions for my colleagues, I'd like to pose a couple. One was, can you share what the current hours are in which this is available and if there's a plan for expansion?
Right now we work Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and it's generally 7 to 5. We'll stay late if we need to or come in early if we don't. I have Tuesdays because I have an online class that I thought wasn't online, so she's flexible enough to change her schedules around for me. I believe they're going to try and get another clinician and officer as a co-response team as well. Just like with staffing at GR, Network 180 and all the other mental health agencies have a staffing crisis. So I think that's kind of one of the barriers to getting more implementation.
We also do, we'll stay late. If we take a call, we'll stay late. We come in on the weekends just because I want to experience some of the weekend fun. So we are flexible and really try to meet the needs, and we'll definitely jump calls even if it's just getting time for our shift to be done. But in all honesty, these calls happen 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So regardless of when we work, we are being very highly utilized.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, about the thought of perhaps having a more of a greater need perhaps on the weekends compared to the weekdays and the hours in which you all are currently set up. Are you seeing calls come in at a pretty significant level on the weekends? But again, I guess part of that is if you aren't available per se, are they making you aware that calls are coming in that are requesting this service?
So historically, we have a lot of calls and a lot of outreach from mental health workers on Thursdays and Fridays when they're worried about the weekends. And that's oftentimes when we get a lot of mental health evaluation or mental health pickup orders on those days, and luckily they're here on Fridays. The officers that are working the streets on the weekends, they send them a ton of emails over the weekend on, maybe it's not somebody that was in a mental health crisis, but could certainly use the services of this team, and then they do follow up when they're back. We'd love to expand this program. Again, it's a personnel issue, not just with the police department, but also with Network 180. So in the future, yeah, we'd like to expand this program and have more coverage, and that's part of what we're evaluating right now. What are the best times and days for that expansion?
Okay, thank you. Colleagues, questions? None? No, please.
I want to thank them for the effort and presentation, and just to remind this body that it was, as I said earlier, it was 2020 when we as a city began to think about how to police differently. And the first effort for some type of inclusive mental health collaborative was with the homeless outreach team. That was a pilot. we expanded that pilot from one shift to having multiple shifts that expanded more beyond Monday through Friday. And I think we're taking the same approach here now. As I mentioned, we just started, and from everything I'm seeing so far, it's been good success. And so we'll continue to evaluate the resources. But as for demand, at least when recently we had the opportunity to ride out, and the mayor accompanied the department along with myself, we saw that there were backed up calls, and many of them were domestics, and there were some that dealt with unhoused people in the evening, and it was a matter of prioritizing, whether or not there were more urgent calls where there was immediate danger to health, life, and safety. And so there definitely is a need for this type of approach, and combined with the different way in which we might recruit candidates, hopefully we can attract more people to the department to do this kind of work.
Mm-hmm. One thing I do want to add, I want to first of all thank you, Officer Smith and Ms. Lung, for your work. And I think what you all are doing really helps to defy or go against the narrative. I think there are a lot of folk within community who looked at this model and were under the wrong impression in terms of the role that a mental health professional could play. I've heard it, quite a few times of, that the assumption is that you're entering into dangerous situations, and, the public will say, we don't need a mental health professional, we need the police, right? And so I think what has helped on this afternoon is the ability to explain, some of what you are encountering, but also my hope would be, and I believe that you're probably taking full advantage of what we're seeing throughout the country, where we've had some situations that have gone the wrong way, where there was a mental health issue. And I don't know if there's as part of the exercise or if there's part of the training where you are taking those incidents into consideration in terms of what could have been done better. And I think the most recent would be Detroit, if you're familiar with what happened there, where a gentleman was struggling with his mental health, and it did not end well. And so just wanted to mention that as well. So
We have hundreds of examples, but one of the ones that I find kind of important to me was we had an individual who was suffering a crisis. He was not suicidal. We went to his apartment. He didn't want to open the door. We didn't feel like we needed to. We talked to him a little while, gave him our cards, and like 3 days later he called us and he's like, I think I want to die by suicide and I need help. So we went and picked him up and took him to an ED or a diversion. Yeah. To where we needed to go to. So yeah, it's helpful having her with the LMSW background to kind of figure out like the best solutions. But yeah, we have a ton of examples of things that we can do, or like we'll lay the groundwork and help them. They know they can call us later, or anybody else.
Mm-hmm. And just to kind of piggyback a little bit on what you just talked about, we did have another call where an individual had barricaded himself in a bathroom, and he did not want to talk to police. So staging outside was police, should they need to have to, get the door down using force. But I was able to come in as a social worker, and the individual was very receptive of that, and he opened the door, came out, and we transported him and got him the services that he needed. So in a situation where there potentially could have had to have been forced to, get in the door, he was willing to talk with a social worker and open the door, and he got treatment, and he's doing great, so.
I just want to thank them for their hard work. We appreciate all that you all have done. It's a badge of honor and courage in this capacity, and wanted to also examine of the 325 calls. I see that 90 of those additional calls that were there did not have any diversion, so I take it the client or there was no response in that regard for follow-up in some particular way from them. Is that correct, or did they take it on their own?
It's a lot of times we can like safety plan and keep them at where they're at. If they have another individual that can be with them to be safe, we want these individuals to be safe, and that doesn't always mean that they go to an ED or an EMS or wherever else. So whatever we need to do to get them safe is what we're going to do to make that happen.
And I think there's hope that we see here that students that are working on the MSW may be interested in a career in this capacity, and so that opens up a brand new door also, especially throughout the confines of the number of universities that we have with these programs here within our area. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Our last item on the agenda is the additional City of Grand Rapids public safety updates.
Before I pass this off, Sergeant Witkowski came up here earlier and really thanked a lot of people. This program wouldn't happen without Sergeant Witkowski's passion for mental health. He helps out with our CIT team and our peer support team. And truly, since I've been working with John, he's been talking about getting some type of program like this started in Grand Rapids, and we finally got the support to do it. But none of it would have happened without him. So I appreciate his efforts, and I just want to let you guys know that he truly is the driving force behind this for us.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, commissioners. Just wanted to give you a couple other brief updates. I was here a couple months ago recognizing that public safety is a comprehensive and collective community response, not necessarily the sole purview of our traditional first responding departments. So we talked about that a few months ago and committed to coming back to this body with some periodic updates of our other efforts, both within the city and our services and with some of our partners. So I'm here today to do a quick update about that. And as the clerk is finding the PowerPoint presentation, I'll just highlight, we do have, as you know, a strategic plan, and there is a component of that around our safe community where people feel and are safe. What I wanted to highlight for today's presentation in both the presentations that you heard already today, as well as a couple of things I'm going to hit on, is that we're really diving deep into that shared understanding of safety. So we, when you heard from Deputy Chief Reifenberg, are really reaching out and engaging with the community in a variety of different and updated ways to understand what does safety look like and feel like to our community members, and then what resources do we have to bring to bear, and what resources do the community members themselves and some of our other partners have to bring to bear. So you heard the fruits of some of that already when Deputy Chief Reifenberg talked about DICE and that comprehensive kind of program and approach to community policing, as well as some of the ways we have flexed our response and have different kinds of expertise to be able to respond to some of those 911 calls. So we are taking that a little bit deeper as well as we think about our other city services. So I wanted to just highlight a couple things. I know you've had a lot of presentations today, so I'll hit a couple things and then happy to answer any questions. One thing I do want to highlight is we continue to focus on our unhoused community. That is something that we take very seriously, the safety and ability to make relationships with our unhoused community and encourage them to connect into the services that are here in this community to get them rehoused. One of the things that is on the commission agenda today is additional or continued financial support from the city for storage of personal items. So that is something that has been successful and helpful and helps create some stability and some ability for folks to be able to move into other activities when they know their items are safely secured somewhere else. So that is continuing. We also continue our day shelter downtown to give folks a place to, again, connect, refresh, and be able to do the various serious work of stability. So we're continuing those efforts with our partners in and around the downtown area. We have also heard a lot of feedback in the last couple months, again, a lot in the downtown, but also in some of our other neighborhoods and parks around issues of personal health and safety that aren't policing issues. They are not police response issues, but we hear from our community they contribute to a feeling of being unsafe. So what other kinds of things can we do to respond to those things? So we are and have enhanced our security resources, private security in our parks and in some downtown areas, again, to lend to that feeling of safety and also to engage in some correction and interruption of behaviors that are not criminal but do lead to kind of a hostile feeling, and making sure everyone downtown feels welcome and safe. So that's something that we are continuing to invest in and monitor how that helps respond to some of the feedback that we are hearing. We are also working hard internally and with our community partners to share information. So there is a lot of great learning that's happening through our first responder departments, through our downtown ambassadors, through our private security, through our own city staff who are out boots on the ground every day doing some part of their job. And we are trying to figure out how can we take that information about areas where we may have some public health or safety issues, and we can respond more in real time to those things and address those situations. So we're working on expanding our ability to share information quickly and to adapt our responses quickly and bring some resources to bear quickly. So that's something we continue to refine and learn from every day, and we're continuing to get commitments from our partners to do that with us, and we appreciate that. And then finally, again, not everything that contributes to a feeling of or to concern about public health and safety is a policing response. We have seen some conditions in the downtown that require more of a public health response, and we have focused recently on making sure that we have things in a clean and sanitary condition. So we've brought some additional resources to bear and intend to do that for a focused period of time to make sure that we are responding to those concerns that we're hearing. So with that I know was a very quick high flyby of some other things we're doing to complement the traditional public safety work. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. Colleagues, any questions? Yes, please, Chris.
So I wondered where the storage facility is. Is it somewhere easy downtown that anyone can access?
It is, the exact address, Cherry and Division, thank you. It's Mel Trotter.
Oh, Mel Trotter, okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Well, I have one more thing.
Sure.
So I guess I've noticed the last couple of years, and you'll see it on the news, the news will report in the wintertime, that some group brought down to maybe Hartside Park 80 pair of socks and 80 pair of boots. And then 2 weeks later, another group will have brought down to Hartside Park the same thing. And it just doesn't seem like there's got to be one place for the community to donate to, because, I know so many people that are wanting to help and they don't know how to do it, so they're taking it upon themselves or they're going to the camps. And I don't think everyone's getting served. I think they'll dump those boots out at Hartside Park, and some of the people will say, I'll distribute them, but you just don't know. It would just be nice to be able to coordinate one place for all of these, wonderful donations to go. Then that's just my thought.
That's great feedback. And there are so many places to donate that could be overwhelming. So we will definitely work on helping people understand where and how they can best connect in with the kinds of help they want to offer to the community. We can always improve our education and our information sharing.
Thank you. Yes, Marlon.
I was just wondering if there's other organizations, public or private, that have stepped up to help in this cause. I really appreciate the leadership and initiative that the city is taking with its various departments, but it's a big job. The second part of that is when is the appropriate time to get out more of this information? I think there is some really new ground being covered, with some of these initiatives.
So two things I will say. Yes, there are definitely partners and neighborhood associations leaning in throughout the city. So Deputy Chief Reifenberg talked a little bit about the DICE program. We are working very closely with neighborhood associations there, some of the business owners, and a number that have brought their own time and resources to bear to see some of that. In the downtown in particular, we continue to partner very well with DGRI. They are assisting us with many of the things that we are doing, and local businesses in the downtown as well are being creative and thinking of other ways to try and reinforce some of the things that we are doing. And as you heard just a little bit from many of our mental health partners. So it really is a very generous community, and there are many ways we are trying to coordinate all of that generosity to kind of collective effort. And so I think that's where we're refining what we're doing. In terms of sharing information, this was one of our first venues to kind of give you again that comprehensive look, and we'll continue to look for ways to amplify the message.
Thank you.
Very good. Questions, comments? I will say thank you very much for the update. I know that we've all had our share of conversations with folks regarding, in particular, one of the bullet points, the enhanced security in downtown Parks and Monroe Center. And so it's good to get updates about, again, how we're responding to that, but also recognizing that, obviously the care and concern for the unhoused, and can really appreciate, again, all of the ongoing efforts, knowing that it's not just obviously the responsibility of the city, but there are others who are stepping up as well to assist in the effort. So I really appreciate that. Also want to take an opportunity to thank my colleagues for your presence here on this afternoon to receive the update. And I think, if anything, we should probably be prepared to have much deeper discussions when it comes time at our upcoming retreat. So thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, yes. And on that note, I'll go ahead and we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you.